Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and if you can recall, I recently reviewed the Raw 10 Hoof figure. They were requested for review here on the channel by numerous people who could recall the fact that I had reviewed the original run of Raw 10s. Well, we also have another new figure out, and in my opinion, this one here is the best Raw 10 figure they have released so far, as we have the Pterodon. Now, this one is a very dragon-like looking figure, and it is easily the coolest looking figure that they have released. They've released some really fun stuff so far, but this dragon is just off the charts insane looking, and it is so highly detailed, as usual when it comes to the Raw 10 figures, but I feel like they're even more so highly detailed than what you usually find. Like, the detailing on this figure is insane, and there's also some beautiful articulation in this one, so it makes it a little more articulated than your usual Raw 10 figure, which makes them even cooler. You can see here as we kind of pan out, we have two different paint variants, just like we did with the Hoof figure. We have a bluish and a greenish version of this figure, and they are phenomenal looking. Like, you can really tell when we get nice and close that, again, as per usual, they're given that really nice dark wash, which shows off how incredible the sculpts are. But there's just so many, elements of realism to the figures. Like, just look at the wings and all of the tears and everything throughout the course of the wings. Like, that is super cool. Really, really awesome realism added to these figures, making it look like these two have been through quite a war at some point, or many wars for that matter. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at both of these incredible figures right now. So just like with the Hoof figure, we again have the exact same sculpt used twice with different paint variations. And that means we only really need to go over the sculpts of one rather than both. But you can see that the actual skin detail and everything, the scale detail, is incredible looking throughout the course of the head of the Pterodon figure. Very nice and very highly detailed throughout. Like, every ounce of detail here is just insane to look at. Like, I feel like I could stare at this figure for hours and still not pick up on all of the detail that is present on the face of this Pterodon figure. Like, even this kind of like spike that runs off the side of the head, like, look at the detailing, the cracks and crevices and everything included on that. That is just phenomenal looking. And we have a very nice greenish coloration for the head, and given a really nice dark wash, which really helps to show off the insane amount of detail included on this figure. You can also see we have a red eye, which really looks very cool. It makes it look super evil, exactly like the sculpt presents it. So the eye being red definitely looks really neat. You can see the nostrils sculpted out up here. The mouth looks very cool. The lower jaw is much longer than the upper jaw, and you can see the teeth are all sculpted out, kind of sporadic with the way that they're, positioned in the mouth, just making it look very reckless, and even more so kind of an evil type of a look. The tongue is sticking up, curved very nicely in the mouth, beautifully textured like everything on this figure is. The gum line looks great. All of the paintwork is extremely precise as far as the way it's painted. You can see nothing looks sloppy on the figure at all, and even the teeth have been given that nice dark wash so that the teeth kind of have that decaying and very ugly kind of a look. You can see the skin stretching and everything, like right here. I really like how the skin is stretching, showing off the movement of the mouth. The only downside to this figure, I think, is the fact that it doesn't have an articulated jaw. You can see inside the mouth also looks incredibly, incredibly cool, but it does not have an articulated jaw, which is definitely a little bit of a downside, but it doesn't take away from the figure too much, and I feel like it still looks insanely awesome, even without the articulated jaw. And then down here on the underside of the throat, again, you can see how beautiful that scale detail looks. And I love the way that they have the skin texture, how it kind of like hangs off of the body. That looks really cool. You have like some ridges running along the throat here on the underside. You also have a very, very highly detailed, very armored type of a look to the upper side of the figure. Again, really neat looking, super nice, super smooth articulation, allows us to turn the neck to really get a good look at the detailing aspect of the figure. As you get further back into the body, as always when it comes to the Raw 10 figures, we pick up on that very cool mechanical type of a look, as we have that nice silver coloration, and then it's been given a dark wash, and this area is always one of the most highly detailed areas, and I think on most, I would say the most highly detailed area usually on a Raw 10 figure would be the mechanical areas, but this particular figure is so unbelievably highly detailed. I think that the actual texturing and everything to the skin and the sculpting of the skin might be more detailed than the mechanical area. You can see more incredible scale detail as we move out the length of the arm. And I love how there's areas where it's like scale detail, but then there's other areas where it looks like it's a very rough kind of a skin texture. Such difference throughout the course of the figure. We have some more spikes kind of leading off of the shoulder area right there. As you lead out, you have a very large spike that comes off of the elbow area in the wing of our pterodon figure. You also have another one here on the side. Again, the cracks and crevices and everything are so beautifully sculpted out throughout the course of every area of this figure. As you lead down into the lower part of the wing here, you can see that we get another very large spike here on the end over here. And you can again see how beautiful the texturing to the skin is. You can kind of see how it's slightly wrinkling in due to the turn in the wing, but also stretching at the same time. And we have the beautiful imperfections that run the course of the outside of the wing, again showing tears galore, holes and everything throughout the course of the wings of this figure. Just looks unbelievable. You can also see like some more spikes leading down here on the lower part, another spike leading out here. So there are just like spikes and everything sticking out of every area of this figure. Another one out here, and of course the wing ends with kind of a spike. So probably one of the most stylized dragon type figures I think I've ever seen. And we have some really cool articulation that would allow us to turn it over and see how highly detailed even the underside is. Like, that is just unbelievably highly detailed throughout the course of this figure. That is about as cool looking, I think, as detailing could possibly get on a mass-produced toy like this. And for the price range of $20, this is unbelievable detail and quality that you get for your figure. And the size is another incredible aspect of the figure. And you can see here with the wing placed on my hand, this is a very large figure, showing off just how incredible it is in every aspect, not only the detailing and paint, but the size as well. Some more really nice scale detail here hiding underneath the arm as we lead out into the wing. You can also see the mechanical area here on the underside continues to look incredible as far as the detailing standpoint. It almost looks like it has eyes and a mouth, which is actually pretty creepy looking, but still really cool. As you lead down the underside of the figure, you can also see again more really vibrant detailing. Like, that detail just pops so nicely throughout the course of the figure. It is quite possibly the most vibrant detailing I may have ever seen, definitely on a Raw 10 figure. You can see kind of like an armored appearance running down the front of the leg. Definitely can pick up on the kneecap right there. Again, you also have scales and everything throughout the course of the leg, kind of behind the armored areas, which again is brought out beautifully with that dark wash. The calf muscle is present right here. You have spikes and everything that kind of just appear randomly throughout. They just drop out of every area of this figure. Try to move that wing a little bit better so we can get a better look at the leg. There you go. You can see how nice the leg is. Some more spikes and everything up here in the hip region. But again, really nice armored appearance running down the course of the leg. You can see the kneecap there a little bit better, I think, sort of, on the front of the leg. Some more spikes leading out of the back and the ankle area. And then if I can actually get this wing out of the way over here, because it's kind of in my way to try to show you the foot. There we go. You can see how evil and creepy looking that foot is. That is just disturbingly cool looking. And you can see the very nice, very sharp and long nails there on the toes. The toes look fantastic. Again, the nails would have looked so much cooler if they would have applied some sort of alternate paint application, like something like a dark gray or anything to them, but they still look really awesome as far as the sculpt goes. And you lead up here into the tail, and as you lead out the length of the tail, we have just the armored type of an area, the mechanical type of an area for the tail, and you lead out, you have spikes everywhere leading out to a really cool tip, very medieval type of a looking tip, I think, of the tail. And it also looks incredible here on the underside as the tail smacks the backdrop, or I mean the wing, not the tail. But you can see it looks honestly unbelievable. No matter where you look at this figure, it is just mind-bogglingly awesome. And again, about as highly detailed of a figure, I think, as you could possibly find. So the sculpt and detailing and paint and everything of this is incredibly awesome. Definitely the best Raw 10 figure yet. And then the alternate paint variant is just pretty much the same thing as the previous one, but instead of green, we have blue. Same deal with the eyes. The eyes are painted with a red. The inside of the mouth seems to be the same coloration. The teeth are all painted very precise, very nicely. Everything's been given the dark wash, which I think the dark wash with this being a lighter tone of blue might be actually a little bit more visible on this one, showing off the detail, a little bit nicer. Like the I think the dark wash just kind of blends a little bit more with the green, whereas it stands out more on the blue. But you can just, I think, get a little bit of a better idea now actually looking at this one in the light of how incredibly highly detailed the sculpt is as you move through, like especially out here in the wings. It really, really pops now looking at it with the lighter coloration. But honestly, the only real difference between this one and the other one would be the bluish coloration rather than the green. So there's not really too much that we need to look at in comparison to the other one because, again, with only one difference in color, it's still a really, really cool paint variant, and having one that's blue and having one that's green, you know, two colorations that actually look pretty natural on the figure, but also really flashy, helps to give you kind of a really cool fleet almost, or at least a pair of insanely awesome mechanical sort of stylized dragon figures. They really have outdone themselves, I think, when it comes to this Pterodon figure. Now, as far as articulation goes, we have some super nice and very smooth articulation in the neck, and it's almost Beasts of the Mesozoic-like with the articulation, because you have a spot here and a spot here, and both can swivel, so you can kind of swivel it around, but I like how you can move the head separate from the neck, so you have, again, the ability to turn the head and turn the neck in a really nice realistic way, especially with the way that they've used those ball joints. So right there straight away, it's probably some of the most impressive articulation that we've had on any of the Raw 10 figures. We also have the wings, which can swivel completely around, but they can also come out away from the body, so you can kind of put your, you know, Pterodon figure. It's so hard to actually do this with little room, but you can put the wings up so that it looks like it's kind of flying, but then you can also transition the wings and move the wings down so it looks like it's standing. And I think that is a really cool aspect to this figure. You can even place the wings all the way down to help with balance, but you actually don't need to. It stands really nicely, shockingly, on its own, and you would think with how far out the head is, it would be top-heavy and maybe fall forward, but that is not the case at all. If we move the wings up, you also can see we have some leg articulation here. It can go forward and back. Could probably all the way swivel, but you can't because of the body being in the way. But it has that capability if the body weren't in the way. And you also have a wire tail, so you can kind of turn the tail here and position it however you want. It doesn't stay perfectly. You can see it starts to kind of fall back, but just a little extra area of articulation, which is super awesome, even as far as that goes. So without question, the most articulated version of a Raw 10 figure we've had yet. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Pterodon figure, you are looking at about the 15 3/4 inch or about 40 centimeter range. There's not too much for a height. I think the highest point would probably be that like edge of the wing right there. And that's about 5 3/4 inches or about 14.5 centimeters, closing in on 15 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papa T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Raw 10 Pterodon figures, and you can definitely see that they are very large. So this time around, there are no figures that you would even consider smaller, like with the first set we had Raptor and the Battle Snake, but this time we don't really have anything on the smaller range, as all of the new figures are really large, and these two here are definitely a great example of how large these can be. And even though the Battle Snake is kind of turned away from us right there, here is another comparison with some of the older figures, as we have Frenzy and the Battle Snake here to show off their sizes in comparison to these Pterodon figures, showing you that they are very sizable. I think the Shark might be a little bit bigger overall body mass wise, but in general, like if you were to spread the wings out and everything of the Pterodon figures, they would be significantly larger than the Frenzy figure, but still helping to hopefully show you a size and show you how large these are if you have the original Raw 10 figures. And because they are so huge, I only brought one in, but here is the Hoof figure in comparison to the Pterodon figure from Raw 10, showing you that the Hoof figure still remains the undisputed champ as far as size goes, but these Pterodon figures are still really quite large regardless. A good bit smaller than our Hoof figure, but they are still really, really sizable, especially when it comes to the length department. So this has been another absolutely awesome round of Raw 10 figures, and I'm really hoping now that these ones are out that this will mean that we'll get more in the future. At first, with the first round, I'm like, you know, they definitely sold well. I saw them consistently disappearing from shelves, but I'm like, yeah, I guess if we get another round of anything from these Raw 10 figures, that would really show us whether we'll get more in the future or not. And since we have now officially received new Raw 10 figures, I'm pretty confident we'll get more, and I'm hoping for sure that we'll get more because I love them. I think they're probably some of the most fun figures that are out currently that aren't dinosaur related, and definitely some of the most highly detailed figures I think you'll see anywhere. And these Pterodon figures are pretty much the top example of just how highly detailed these Raw 10 figures can get, because in my opinion, this is the most highly detailed one we've had, which is pretty impressive to say considering they've all been exceptionally highly detailed. But these Pterodon figures are just phenomenal as far as the detailing goes. Like, you could probably stare at this thing for days and still find new areas of detailing that are on the figure, and you can't often say that when it comes to any figure, which really shows how impressive the sculpts of these are. I love how stylized they are. I of course love the addition of the mechanical type of a look where they're kind of half mechanical, half living animal. I love that aspect of the figures, and I also love how they have painted these up as usual, with applying some really nice tones of color and a nice dark wash that pretty much ties the entire paint together and adds so much more of an element of realism, but also makes all of the detail pop, shows you just how realistic and how highly detailed the figures truly can be. Of course, they're not real animals, but as far as looking at them, like, they look like they could potentially be living animals with how nicely they've been painted. There are some areas that could have been improved upon a little bit as far as paintwork, like painted nails and stuff, and like the spikes and everything. Like, imagine how cool this would look if those were actually painted out. It would look insanely awesome, which it already does, but even somehow more awesome if those areas were painted. I'm half tempted to buy one of these again just to kind of touch those areas up, give it some alternate paint, extra paint, and try to see how nice I can get it to look. But again, on top of the really beautiful sculpt, the really nice paintwork, you have some incredibly awesome articulation, which these two here are the most articulated, I would say, out of any of the Raw 10 figures that we've had so far. Really love the articulation in the neck specifically. That's a nice upgrade from previous releases, and it's super smooth. No stiffness to the joints, honestly, in any of the figures, which is also a plus. And you have that kind of wire tail, so you can kind of articulate and display the tail in different positions as well. So this is another awesome release from the Raw 10 line, and I highly recommend, if you are interested in these, to just head to your local Walmart, search them out, pick them up, because they are without question worth a purchase. So make sure you do that, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.